Hey guys, how are you doing? Now it's turn of Shin Megami Tensei V to be reviewed. For this, I am going to be checking its story, graphics, gameplay, and music. So let's begin with its story. The main plot of the story is the fall of man, that of Adam and Eve, in the Garden of Eden. However, prior to this, there were many gods, and humans lacking knowledge. That's when God took upon the Empyrean throne and separated knowledge and life. What this means is that God reduced many other deities to demons. God's plan was to keep any other deity away from the throne of creation. As consequence, God kept the fruit of knowledge in the Garden of Eden, where humans were tempted to eat the forbidden fruit. That's how humanity faced the fall of man. Led by temptation, the humans gained knowledge, making them closer to God. The serpent's purpose was to bring once again the world of myriad gods. And humans are a key element for that to happen. That is when our silent character, after an incident in a tunnel, finds himself in the netherworld, also known as the Dahat. Finding himself surrounded by a sea of sand and close to get murdered by demons. Perfin appears to save our character and create what is known as an Ahubin. Essentially what this means is that we are a potential god with the right to take the throne of creation. From that point onwards, it is up to us to decide what's going to happen to all humanity. This story, the whole concept is fascinating. There is a lot of knowledge from many books, and the way they represent it, it's extraordinary. In the main game, what I didn't like is that at the beginning we are kind of forced to help the angels. There are reasons for this to happen, but as an SMT fan, I've always liked the neural starts, where you decide your own path since the very beginning. I am going to be adding the voice acting in the story together because it is essentially the way a story is told. About its voice acting, I believe it's pretty good. I am not a fan of certain sounds or voices, but looking at the key parts in the story, I really enjoy how they sound. For example, Lucifer dialogues. I simply love them. As the story goes, since the beginning, he lets you know that titanic battles are going to be in your journey. But aside from that, the whole concept is really good. It is a 9.
Light or dark, you may chase whatever you please. I shall await you in the realm beyond the earth and heavens.
If we talk about the graphics and compare them with other games, SMT5 could improve. But here I will have to compromise it a little bit, not because I want the game to have a good score, but to be fair with this. If you look at the demons at certain distance, the animations stop looking fluent. Also, there are details like feathers or some other parts of the demons that don't look really good. Perhaps they look a bit too much straight. That is, looking at specific details, of course. However, there are some other things that look pretty good. For example, the movement in the environment, dust, sand, water. Here just to point out at these little details. If you look at the grass for too long, you will notice that some animations are quite repetitive. But let's be fair, in these fights you pay much more attention not to die rather than many other things. Now, talking about the fights, which is the main dish in this game, the attacks look really good. Every movement looks really detailed. For example, and hoping that I do not mispronounce, Agibarion or Tandava. In my humble opinion, the movements are pretty well made. Personally, I don't get bored looking at the fights because they look gorgeous. An important thing to point out here is that you don't need to grind in this game. Once you understand how it works, you may have to grind just a little bit in certain areas, but nothing crazy unless you don't pay attention. About graphics, there are things that definitely could improve, and some others that are really good. It is an 8. For the gameplay, SMT5 follows the classic formula of the franchise. What this means is that exploiting your enemy weaknesses are heavily rewarded, giving us returns in what is known as the press turn system. Also, a new mechanic was added, and that is the use of the special skills through Magatsuhi, which you can potentially use to land critical hits, heal and revive your whole party, or deal massive amounts of damage to clutch a victory. In principle, the SMT mechanics sound easy. In practice, it's not as simple. Because every demon has different attributes and skills, meaning that the first playthrough it's going to be a challenge, mainly because you can't brute force your way. Even playing in casual, you'll need to create a strategy. This may sound tedious, but for example, in my first run I used whatever it looked like a good idea. At some points, that meant using demons with many weaknesses. Diving a bit more into the system, you can add different skills to your demons aside from the ones that they naturally learn. Just to show a bit about the progression system, you pretty much start with demons like this, a Jack-o'-lantern, then Quetzalcoatl, Kinky, Norn, Wanglong, and at the very end, someone like Belzebub. From one weakness and one block till someone who pretty much absorbs multiple attacks. As it is common in SMT, the lifespan from demons is quite short, because in this game you have to change demons with a lot of frequency. In practice, a demon is going to be useful within 5 levels. Beyond that, leveling up becomes really hard, so this system forces you to experiment. The way to acquire demons is also the same as some other SMTs, through demon negotiation and then fusion. That is when you start checking different possibilities to make a better team due to the fusion system, and here is where the thing starts becoming quite complex. That is for its combat system and making a menacing team. For its overworld, you are going to find yourself trying to figure out different routes to progress within the story. But it is not something complex. Getting lost is quite hard in this game because it's pretty linear, of course. Within these areas you can explore much more, which is rewarded in different ways. Finding items, glory points to enhance your characters or team, essence to get better skills, and much more. About the difficulty, Shin Megami Tensei V is actually a really good first step for those interested in this franchise. This Shin Megami Tensei is not the hardest by any means if compared with other entries. For example, a Strange Journey can be stupid hard at times, because you cannot save quite frequently, as in SMT5, but here you can pretty much go back to your save points and before going into a new area it is possible to save. Also, the game tells you whenever you are going to face a boss, and none of the main bosses here have a BS one-hit KO, or complex mechanics where you need much more than 4 decent demons to face a battle. In any case, just making an analogy here, it's like playing a Soulsborne game. It doesn't matter how experienced you are, you will face a BS SMT moment, at least once. Sometimes they can be frustrating, because you have no idea what's going to happen in any battle. It is possible to find an enemy who is able to royal screw your whole party. You could say that in this franchise, every battle is like a boss battle. You cannot have anything for granted, even against demons that you will normally dominate. And if that is how you need to treat these normal fights, going into a boss battle without preparation is going to be horribly bad. Unless RNGesus is on your side the whole battle, but relying on that is not practical. Either way, that is not something to discourage people. This is not an easy Jrpg, but the strategy is king here. For its gameplay, it is a 10. And last but not least, its music. Personally, I believe an SMT never fails in this category. In most of the times, it's a combination of different kinds of genres like rock, punk, electronic, metal, classic, so there are several amazing tracks throughout the whole game. Some of them quite easy to listen, and some others to bring the inner god to face your enemies. There are just a few tracks that I wouldn't regularly listen, but aside from that, it's a feast to the ear. Do not ramble further with my ideas, it is a 10. Shin Megami Tensei V final score is 9.3. Excellent JRPG for those seeking an extraordinary story and to suffer a bit with its gameplay. Just as final notes, what I enjoy the most in an SMT game is its story, because they usually throw several concepts from many different books. Aside from that, its main plot is kinda easy to grasp in every game. However, if you want to truly understand the whole concept, you may need some heavy reading from several books, mythology, Kabbalah, Goetia, because the game is full of little details in terminology and concepts. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.